Well, data deluge. First it was jobs, then came the GDP data, which was followed by the GST data. The eve of the budget to see a barrage of data. The day began with the Business Standard report that cited jobs data compiled by the National Sample Survey Office, the NSSO, showing unemployment at a 45-year high in FY18. A few hours later, the government released the revised GDP data that pegs growth rate in fiscal year 2017. Remember, the year of demonetisation at 8.2%. That's a significant jump from the 7.1% that was reported earlier. The government shared another positive number a few minutes later. GST collections in the month of January crossed 1 lakh crore rupees, surpassing the psychological mark. The government, however, has not provided a breakup of the revenue and says it will release the exact data on the 2nd of February. So quite an eventful day in terms of data. But let's discuss the jobs report in detail. Now, if you look at what the Business Standard says, and it has accessed the NSSO data, the data reveals the jobless rate is highest since 1973. It is believed that the NSC members of the National Statistical Commission who quit 2 days ago ostensibly quit because the government stalled the release of the report. Niti Aayog's Vice Chairman Rajiv Kumar says that this is a draft report. It is yet to be approved by the government. He went on to argue that taxi-hailing platforms like Ola and Uber alone have created 2.2 million jobs in recent years. And hence, the claim that there has been no job creation is inaccurate. So first up, here's the big face-off over the NSSO's jobs report, and then we get to our experts.
Because they have virtually destroyed the National Statistical Commission. So how will they publish the data? What little credibility there was is completely lost now. The unemployment rate is at a high of about 6.1% or so. But that's because no jobs are created.
The growth rate is higher. We are growing at the fastest rate of all the major economies. And the employment will follow. Much of the employment is actually not in the formal field.
Now data is being encountered. It's most unfortunate 2 of the people have resigned, saying that this government is not willing to put this data in the public domain. And this is the result of Modi ji's Pakoda-nomics.
This report that is being cited is not yet finalized, is a draft report, and the data that is being cited is not yet been finalized or approved by the government.
We are creating jobs for new entrants. We probably are not creating high quality jobs. Several analyses across sector we've tried to do, and to our mind, good number of jobs in the region of 7.5 to 8 million jobs are getting created.
Well, that's the press conference done just a short while back by the Niti Aayog, the Vice Chairman, as well as the CEO there, saying that there is no attempt to hide the data and that they will present the jobs data in March. Joining us now to take this discussion forward, Somesh Jha, the man who broke the story in the Business Standard this morning, the former Chairman of the National Statistical Commission, Sudipta Munal, Professor Jawaharlal Nehru University, Himanshu, BJP spokesperson Narendra Taneja, and Congress spokesperson Sanjay Jha. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here on the show. Somesh, let me come to you because it's your story that you broke in the Business Standard this morning, and you're the one who's accessed the NSSO report. The assertion of the Niti Aayog, both the Vice Chairman as well as the CEO, is that this is a draft report and hence it cannot be used to arrive at this conclusive number which you have reported on. They go on to say that they're still awaiting further data and this has not been approved by the government, and hence the report will perhaps be put out in March. That's the timeline that they've presented. Since you've accessed the report, can you tell us whether this said it was a draft report? Did they conclusively arrive at the numbers that you've put out?
No, so let's be very clear that, when the report was in the draft stage, it was put up for approval towards in front of 2 committees. One is a standing committee, which was supposed to vet it, and the other is the National Statistical Commission, which was supposed to approve it and approve it for release. So both these committees in the first week of December have clearly given their approval, and you can the NSC acting chairman is also on record to say that he has given the approval to this report for release, and the government is not releasing it. And we know for a fact, and if you talk to NSC officials, they will tell you that after the approval of NSC, there is no other approval required on the report, and it has to be released on the website of NSSO immediately or within a period of let's say 1 week. So we cannot say that it's a draft report. It's,
okay, so
I think it's misleading in that sense.
Okay, so you're confirming you're confirming two things, that it was approved by the Standing Committee and it was approved by the National Statistical Commission, which of course now stands disbanded, but it was approved by both these bodies in the first week of December. That's what the report clearly says.
Yeah, exactly, that's right. Both the committees have approved it and this is the final numbers in place. Yeah, right.
Okay. So let me go across to Narendra Taneja. Mr. Taneja, you've just heard what Somesh Jha, the journalist who broke this story, has had to say. Please explain to us, whose approval is the government waiting for if it has already been approved by the Standing Committee and it's already been approved by the National Statistical Commission? And we did have Mr. Mohanan, who has now resigned from the NSC, on camera saying that one of the reasons why they expressed their displeasure and hence their resignation was to do with two issues. One, the handling of the GDP back series and the NSSO jobs data. Are you looking for cabinet approval, which is not the precedent, sir? Because we had the former NSC chairman, Pranab Sen, telling us that there is no involvement of the cabinet required to clear the NSSO data. So whose approval is the government waiting for?
Shruti, you have to bear with me. It's very, very poor audio. I can hardly hear you, but I'll try. You see,
yeah, go ahead.
Can you repeat the question? I didn't get the question. Can you just repeat, please? It's very poor audio. Very poor line.
We heard. Sure, we'll try and boost the audio. My simple question to you is, whose approval is the government waiting for to put this data out in public domain? Because the reporter who broke that story says the report he's accessed has been cleared by the NSC as well as the Standing Committee. Today, the Niti Aayog said that it requires approval from the government before it is put out, and they hope they'll put it out by March. Whose approval do you require?
No, the question is that, as you know, the Deputy Chairman of the Planning Committee or the Niti Aayog made it very clear, the reports you are referring to in a morning newspaper, those data are not verified. You see, they have given the data, whatever has come out in the newspapers, those data are not verified. And, it's the government jobs to make sure that the data are correct, data are verified. And, the organization you're referring to is not one individual or two individuals. It's an organization, there are systems in place. One or two individuals can have a different view. But that does mean that becomes the view of the entire organization. You see, organizations are not about just one or two individuals, as sometimes in media the attempt is to kind of suggest CBI is all about director, RBI is all about governor. That's not how the organization functions. So the point is that, there is a draft available, and all data not verified, because you have to understand what is for the government, why the report being or the rumor being circulated, government try to hide it and all that. It's all nonsense. Why should the government try to hide anything? And these organizations, there are thousands of people working in these organizations. And all that's why you can see that even the newspaper is carrying a report. Now, the message is very... You see, if you're...
The newspaper is carrying a report saying that the report has not been put forward because... Yes, sir. I'm asking a simple question, sir. I'm asking you, whose approval are you waiting for? Because if the process is that it has to be approved by two bodies, those two bodies ostensibly have cleared it according to the report that's been accessed by the Business Standard. And hence my question, whose approval are you waiting for?
No. I mean, you are saying cabinet approval and all that. There are due processes. There are due processes, and is going through the process. When the process is complete, the report will come out. You see, the point is, those gentlemen you are referring to.
Let me get some. Let's address this issue. Let's address this issue. Let's address this issue of process that you raise. And let me bring in a man who should know about the process. Mr. Mundal, can you confirm to us, Somesh Jha, who's accessed the NSSO report, says that it was cleared by the Standing Committee and it was also cleared by the NSC. We've had Mr. Mohanan pretty much say that on the air as well and on record. Is that enough, or is there other approval required, sir?
I think that is completely enough. Due process is there, and it was followed in this case. After that, there is professionally no other reason for anybody to hold back these reports. What was done was exactly procedure as laid down was followed.
Okay, there you have it, Mr. Taneja. Sudipto Mandal, former chairman of the NSC, very categorically saying that that is the process and process has been followed. Yet the government is saying that process has not been followed. This is a draft report. Approval is required and hence we haven't put out this data.
Well, the question is that, Shireen, is up to you. You want to trust a former chairman or you want to trust the government? If you say you don't believe the government, that's a different story altogether.
Sir, it's not up to me, sir. I will trust the facts, sir. I will trust the facts.
No, we are talking
trust facts, sir.
No, listen.
You raised the issue of process.
No, the point...
I'm getting clarification on the process, sir. No. I'm trusting facts.
No, Shireen, first of all, I'll repeat. Let me repeat. It's very poor audio. I can hear you. You know, what I'm capturing is just 10% of what you are saying. Okay. Only 10%. So the point, but still I'll try. Let me try to answer your question if I'm getting it right. You see, the point I'm trying to make is that, you know, if there is a due process and the government is following the due process, and once the process is through, the data will be, shared with the people. Because what is the government's? Are you suggesting government has any vested interest? Is government trying to hide something? If that is the theory,
I'm not suggesting
then I have nothing to say.
Sir.
Or if you see the government doesn't know the process, and you want to bring in an ex-chairman, and you say, ex-chairman, what is happening now? The point is,
but
the government
why are
is
you
saying,
discrediting an ex-chairman, sir? He's only talking about the process that is. Sir,
but I said
I'll
that
come back to you and we'll try and establish a clearer line with you. I'll try and establish a clearer line with you, but let me. Because that is what the report that's been accessed by the Business Standard says so, sir. So I'm only going by that. I caveated what I said and I asked Somesh Jha, who's broken this story, for details which he provided us on the program, and I asked for the process that is followed. I asked Mr. Mundal to corroborate if that is accurate. He corroborated that is accurate, and hence my point to you. But let me move on now. Himanshu, let me come to you with the arguments that have been presented by the government today. And the Niti Aayog Vice Chairman and the CEO saying that, look, we need more data. We need another quarter's data before we can conclusively arrive at the unemployment number, because this cannot be done sequentially. It has to be a year-on-year comparison. On the basis of what you've seen and what you have heard, what do you make of it?
Well, honestly, the data that is being talked about is the data for 2017-18, which is July to June, 1 year that we are talking about. That data collection is over, and the report is also about the agricultural year, July to June, which is normally the reference year that the NSS has been using over the years for employment and unemployment data. So it's not about the quarterly data that we are bothered about. That data is there, and the 2017-18 data does not need to wait. We don't have to wait for quarterly data for the next quarter or next to next quarter to look at what the data is going to be for 2017-18. That data could have been released very easily. And in fact, the quarterly data series in the urban areas is a process. It is supposed to go on for every quarter, like the quarterly GDP series. But that doesn't mean that the annual series, which is for the rural areas and also for the urban areas, will have to wait for some quarterly data. So I don't buy that argument. And that argument that it has to be compared with quarter to quarter, obviously when the quarterly data will come, that will be compared on a quarter to quarter basis. But that doesn't mean that the annual data has any problems.
Okay. Mr. Mundal, would you agree with what we've just heard there from Himanshu, and what do you make of the response that's coming from the government clarifying its position?
I don't know about what the government is saying. I was not present at that press conference. What Himanshu is saying is correct. You know, earlier we used to have data which was annual data, but it would come with a long time lag, which is not good enough for say monetary policy and so on, where you need high frequency data, which is why we have now moved to what is known as the periodic labor force survey system, and it gives out quarterly data for urban areas, and it takes those quarterly figures, combines them with the annual figures of the rural area, and you get an annual figure which is more or less comparable to what used to come out earlier, except that the quarterly data is there very frequently, and now the RBI and others requiring high frequency data can use it. So that's really the technical process that has been followed, and that survey has been completed. You do have now annual data for 17-18. Unfortunately, it's not been put officially in the public domain.
Okay, so there you have two economists, Mr. Taneja saying that the data that has been provided but not been put forward in the public domain by the NSSO is complete and an accurate representation on the back of the process that they followed. In fact, if I may, for the benefit of our viewers, also go back to the report of the task force that was set up by your own government, which submitted its report on the 23rd of July in 2017, and it raised this issue. It said, and I quote, that the NSSO has started an exercise called the Periodic Labour Force Survey that will provide annual estimates of labour force, employment, unemployment, industry structure of workforce on an annual basis. This task force is of the view that this survey will go a long way towards fulfilling the current vacuum in the availability of information relating to India's labour market. So your own government believes that this is the best way to fill the vacuum when it comes to jobs data in the country, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. So who is denying that? Who is denying that? You see, because there is some delay.
But for some reason, you're not putting it out.
Trying to hide it. No, but you see, the point is that, this is what I'm saying, but that if there is a little delay in something because the data is being verified and, further processed, does it mean that government has something to hide?
But there's no need for
That's your interpretation, and you want to run the whole thing.
Right?
I can understand. I can understand if politician in a opposition party makes a big issue out of it in order to, draw some political capital, mileage out of it. But I can't understand to say that, look, we don't trust the government. We don't trust the vice chairperson of the Niti Aayog. We don't trust anybody in the government.
So no one is saying that. No, Mr. Taneja. Mr. Taneja, no, I'm sorry. That is an unfair assertion. That is an unfair assertion. Asking a question and qualifying that as we don't trust the government is an unfair assertion. We're asking questions as to why, if this due process has been followed, and we've got two people who are well versed with the process saying that the process has been followed, is the government not putting out the data? It's a simple question, sir. Yeah. Just one second, I'm coming back to you. Somesh, very quickly, you wanted to make a point.
No.
Yeah. So what I was saying is that we don't need to. No, the point is that there is no need to verify the data after it has been approved by the National Statistical Commission. So after the National Statistical Commission has given its approval for release, I don't see any point why the government is going for a verification of the numbers. Is the government uncomfortable with the numbers that they're going for a verification on it, or what is the reason? We really don't know. Why is there a verification required when the NSC has approved it for release? So that's the whole point. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, that point we've made on the program, but very quickly, Sanjay Jha, you wanted to come in, very quick response.
Shireen, I think the BJP spokesperson has asked a couple of times on your show, do you not trust the government? Do you not believe the data? Do you believe the government has something to hide? And the answer to all of them is yes. One doesn't trust your government. One believes you're trying to actually manipulate data. One does believe that you have a political reason for delaying it. And let me tell you, I think governments come and go. Institutions remain. And end of the day, we are seeing the destruction of another institution in our country. And let's not try and make that the new normal. The truth of the matter is very straightforward. There has been a high rampant unemployment for the last 5 years. I really can't understand why the government is choosing to live in denial. You got to accept the reality. And what is the truth? The truth at the ground level is, if you look at the data that has come out by the Business Standard today, that tells you that from 2.2%, you have moved up to 6.1% now, and 2.2% was in 2011, one of the toughest years that the Indian economy was battling with. It tells you how mismanaged that economy has been. And by the way, corroborate this with what CMIE, another independent research institution, put out just a few weeks ago, that people lost 11 million jobs in 2017-18. Now, all of this actually fits in. The jigsaw puzzle is actually pretty much logically complete. The government is frankly opaque. And I'll tell you why we are concerned. Why we are concerned is this government will be voted out. But there'll be a new government in 2019, but the integrity of Indian data, the fact that tomorrow foreign investors or bankers or analysts or anybody looking at India with microscopic interest, we are a big emerging market economy. A lot of people will say, we have begun to see India, we have begun to see India, just a minute, why do you interrupt, my friend? Why do you interrupt?
I'm coming to you.
You know, Shireen, the point is, You can't allow
Taneja, I'm
Indian
asking the
data
anchor to give me a
questioned like
chance
China's
to
is.
rebut the propaganda.
I'm
That's
sorry,
all.
India
I'm
is
coming to
still...
you, Mr. Taneja.
India
Mr.
was
Taneja,
and
just one
India
second, please.
will remain... Yeah. Yeah, I know. I'm used to the impertinence and the vulgar behavior of the BJP. I'm not surprised. But let me make a point. India's data integrity should never be questioned.
You are going non-stop.
And let me tell you, I think the BJP is damaging India's global reputation. They're damaging our credibility.
Okay, all right. Okay, Sanjay Jha, okay, you made that point. Let me go back. Mr. Taneja, I'm going to add one more piece of information, and again for the benefit of our viewers, because this is a complex issue. Now, a few months ago, Mr. Jha, sorry, let me continue, please. A few months ago, the government held up the EPFO data, which was a study that was conducted by two gentlemen, and said that this data shows unequivocally that there has been a spurt in job creation. Now, I go back again, sir, and point your attention to page 15 of your own government's task force on the report on employment data, which said that using EPFO data or ESI data had serious limitations. It said, one, because there was a substantial overlap, and two, the second limitation it pointed out was that this does not represent new jobs, it represents formalization. So is there not an attempt to mislead, Mr. Taneja?
No, well, that's a very serious allegation. That's an attempt to mislead. The point is that all that we are trying to do is always there's an effort, because 93% jobs in the country, our economy is in the informal sector. It's only 7% which is in the formal sector. And our effort is basically, when we come out with data, across the board, the data are basically most representative. That is the whole idea. So we are bringing on many changes. You are referring to task forces. We are trying to make the whole process as modern as possible and as dynamic and as reliable as possible. You see, we are making all kinds of changes. We are transforming so many things. I can understand if Sanjay Jha tries to make a political statement out of it. That's okay. We know how to deal with it. But the point is, when you go for transformation and we go for try to capture the maximum possible, the most reliable data, sometimes there can be delay. That's why you said we are not answering. We have answered at the level last 90 minutes. We have answered at the highest level. What more you want? We have said it, answered repeatedly the last 90 minutes, and I'm also trying to do that. So that's precisely what it is. But if anybody is suggesting we're trying to hide anything, that's complete nonsense.
Okay, all right. Let me get the two economists back in on the conversation. Mr. Mundal, let me come to you. Forget what whether the government is putting this out or not putting it out. It needs more verification, and that question you've answered, and the BJP spokesperson has its own point of view on that. But what do you make of the data per se? Whether it is jobless rate amongst the youth for 2018 at 17.4%, rural female at 13.6%, urban males 18.7%, urban female 27.2%. On the back of what this data shows you, how concerned would you be?
Shireen, I am afraid I have to disappoint you. I have not seen this leaked report, so I cannot comment on what it says. And these are such technical matters that without looking into details, it would be irresponsible of me to make any comments.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Let me then ask you, sir, because again, I go back to the press conference at the Niti Aayog. Yeah, I'll just come to you in a second. The press conference at the Niti Aayog held a short while ago, and the CEO of the Niti Aayog saying that we've been able to create over 7 million jobs. In fact, Ola and Uber by itself creating over 2 million jobs, for instance, and several other anecdotal data points like that. So again, and I ask you this because people are confused. What is the data telling us? Where does the truth lie?
When the data, the robust, reliable data based on the national sample survey and so on, is not made available, and then people argue with anecdotes. Some will argue one way, others will argue another way, and this is all rubbish. One should not go by all this. If you are serious that the report is ready, it's been properly vetted, just put it out. That's all I would say.
Okay.
Absent that, anybody can say anything, and we can speculate.
Okay. Himanshu, let me put that question to you. How would you interpret what you've seen basis, and I'm assuming that you've seen the data that's been put out by the Business Standard today, which has been captured by the NSSO, and how that then compares with what we've heard from the government saying that, look, there are all of these new jobs, new entrants, to use Mr. Kant's words, that we are giving new jobs to. How do you reconcile the two?
I mean, let me put it in a different way. I mean, by government's own admission, and including the spokesperson here has also made it very clear, that this data, the EPFO data, is only about, or even the data that the government is, Niti Aayog is coming out, is a data only for the formal sector, which is at best covering, I mean, let's go beyond that, covering around 15% of the total economy, maybe less than that of economy. And it doesn't say anything about the 85% of the economy. And that 85% of the economy may actually see job losses. And there is one confirmed figure for which there is an evidence that has come up from NSSO, but also from the Labour Bureau surveys, is that roughly 7 million people are moving out from agriculture, exiting agriculture and going into the non-agricultural sector. So obviously that 7 million could be simply being captured into EPFO. Forget about the EPFO duplication problem and all sorts of data capture problem, all those issues. But even that, if you take it on face value, that also means that the net creation in the economy is zero. So that is why the only way one can get an idea of how much jobs have been created in the entire economy is by not looking at the sectoral numbers, but by looking at the whole economy. And there is only one data that can give you that information, and that is the NSSO data. The other one was the Labour Bureau data, which again has been suppressed by the data, which was something which was approved in the July 2018, but that data also has not been released. And Shamis has also released some parts of that data, which is there in the public domain now. I mean, at least the leaked part is there in the public domain. So I think looking at the, if you want to have a countrywide picture, the EPFO data is simply not enough, and that cannot counter the overall picture that is coming out from these numbers.
Valid point that you make there, and as you pointed out as well, the labour survey data has also not been put out in public, though of course there are leaked reports, versions of that are now in the public domain. Mr. Taneja, I'll give you the final say. NSSO data you're saying requires more time and it will be put out by March, but even the Labour Bureau's survey, sir, why has that not been put out?
You see, you see, what we are trying to do is that even our effort is basically even different data we are talking about to bring out the data as latest as possible. Because you see, for us, data is very important because, we are planning, we are very hopeful and confident we are returning to power. So we are really preparing for the next 5 years as well. So we want to have data as authentic and as comprehensive as possible. Please. And the final point I want to make is, Shireen, the point is that, we as a government, as part of our policy, we have nothing to hide. The economy, if you are growing at 7.2%, is bound to create jobs. The question is, if Congress party suggests people are not getting a job, then I'm sure the aliens are coming from some other planet, and they're the one who are working at boosting the economy. So Congress believes in alien theory. We don't believe in that.
Let's.
Thank you very much.
Okay, this is not all right, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, make a quick point. We've come down to aliens now. Very quick point, Sanjay Jha.
Well, I guess what can save the job crisis is unidentified flying objects. But, this is political arrogance. You heard the BJP spokesperson say, we are coming back to power. So he assumes that there is no official responsibility whatsoever. We'll do what we like. The people of this country can wait. You and I can debate it. Former eminent people on your channel can be humiliated by saying, do you trust them at all? Why do you trust them? Trust us. I mean, this is democracy in peril. When somebody comes and says, if you don't trust the government, you are actually a liar yourself, we have a problem. And I think the most disturbing data is the 27% women who are unemployed in urban areas. And I feel, Shirin, I speak on behalf, of everybody here, that if women in a society are getting increasingly, shall we say, unemployed, it's a manifestation of an economy in some degree of serious crisis. I think we are living in a fool's paradise if we try to turn a blind eye to a hard economic reality.
Well, Sanjay Jha, Narendra Taneja, Himanshu, Mr. Mundal and Somesh, thanks very much for joining us here on CNBC TV 18 with your take on the big jobs debate. Are we any wiser at the end of it? I'm not so sure, but a process has been followed. That is what has been corroborated by people in the know on the back of the report that's been broken by Somesh Jha of the Business Standard this morning. For now, from all of us here, goodbye. Many thanks for watching.